there. We are a pool builder in Canada and we are starting to do stone waterfalls. I love your YouTube videos. What size, height of stone do you recommend for the individual stones to make the waterfall look and perform well? Is there one type of stone you prefer over another? Thanks for your time. I know you're a busy guy.
So that's a loaded question because there's a lot of great materials out there. There's a lot of great ways of doing it. I'll just give you a couple hints in terms of why our stuff works well. You have to think about the height of the stone. Yeah, to some extent. It's really, though, the art of putting stone together. But the thing that I think people don't realize when building a waterfall is the surface tension of the water itself. If you can figure out surface tension, you can build great waterfalls. Anywhere that you want water to fall and you want it to come away from the stone and actually fall down, not dribble down, you need to use a material that has a really sharp edge. If you tried to use, say, tumbled New York bluestone for your edge where the water is going to fall off, and if you know what tumbled bluestone is, it's basically bluestone that's taken and tumbled in a big dryer almost that breaks off the edges. Well, when water is traveling across that surface and gets to the edge, if the edge is round, the water tension holds itself together and it rolls right off the end, and you don't get that crisp fall. If you use a stone, and there's all kinds, I love Chilton. My favorite stone to work with is any kind of a Chilton stone. I love Chilton, although I've used a lot of different stone over the years. But what I make sure, my key is to make sure that wherever you're going to get water to fall and splash off of, is that material has a nice sharp edge. And here's why. So if you can picture a perfectly sharp edge on there, as that water is traveling, it's trying to hold itself all together, but it can't go this way and then automatically go this way. Gravity is going to pull it down, yes, but if you can get it to travel off that edge and all of a sudden it starts falling, now it's out here and the surface tension holds it together, but it doesn't pull it into the stone. If I have a rounded edge right here, that is going to follow the shape of the stone. As it's holding onto itself, it's rolling down and you're not going to get that fall. A nice crisp edge allows that water to escape the surface tension, and then gravity takes over from there. So that's the first most important thing. The second most important thing is, to me, is the echo chamber. How do you want this waterfall to sound? Are we trying to create rumble? Are we giving it more of a narrow? Because the wider the waterfall, obviously the wider the sound, and the more water you push over it, the louder the splash. But I really try to think about, where do I want people to be enjoying it from and not being overpowered by it? If they're sitting right there, I want a certain amount to fall that way, but I want some to fall this way so it's not all centered at that. If you have one viewing spot and you want it to rumble people's ears off, what I would do is I would almost create a concave situation where all the water is falling and creating an echo chamber right at that spot. Usually that's not an ideal situation. Usually we try to spread the sound out a little bit so you can hear it from here. It's amazing, though, when you build them and you listen to them, how much sound, if I'm pushing water that way, how much sound you can hear from there. And you can walk around toward the back of this waterfall and not hear anything. It's quiet. That's called the echo chamber. The next thing is, how even do you want the water to fall? If you're trying to create a sheet of water, you have to think of how much water it's going to take to create that sheet, how wide of a sheet you want it to be, and how far it's falling. Because if you create a sheet of water, as it's thin at the top, as it falls, surface tension, it's trying to pull in on itself, that waterfall is going to narrow. So if it's falling off of a stone ledge at the top and the water is this thick, if it's falling in a sheet, by the time it hits the water, it might be this thick and only this wide. It started this wide and this wide. So you have to think about how high you want it to fall. If we want it to fall 6 feet, it's going to start way out here, and by the time it hits the water, it's going to be like this, and it's going to be a big fat sheet versus a real thin sheet on the top. That's just a natural transition. But typically, on an average project where you're just trying to make a really cool waterfall without it being overwhelming, 8 to 12 inch thick stone tends to work well. A lot of times what we do today is we build more fountain waterfalls where we do stonework. We'll block it up and we'll do all kinds of fancy stonework and then use a piece of Chilton flagstone on the top to get that look. And that we can vary anywhere from 6 inches to 2 feet easily or more. We rarely do more than that on any given fall. My rule of thumb is each level of fall is less than 2 feet. And the reason for that is once it gets bigger than that, you need a lot more water volume. And if you can dedicate massive pumps to pushing massive water, that's one thing. But most people are trying to add a water feature to the pool that they're building or an existing pool, and they don't really want to have all these additional pumps and all this additional water moving. So I try to keep that in mind, that if I'm going to build a little bit of a waterfall, but not a massive waterfall because I don't want a lot of pumps to run this thing, I'm not going to drop the water any more than 2 feet per drop. Now the waterfall may be 8 feet tall and it's going to fall 4 times. If I wanted a massive amount of water, or if I could get a massive amount of water, I might do 4 foot or 5 foot or 6 foot falls, but that way I'm pushing enough over that it's falling and looking like a waterfall versus dribbling and dripping like a little rainstorm, which that's an interesting look as well, but that's not really what we're going for when we're building a waterfall. So hopefully that helps. There's a lot of great materials out there. I would say get creative with them. I would say play with it a little bit, but use those general rules of thumb. Sharp edges, not more than 2 feet per drop, and not too many drops. And another big mistake I know I certainly made in my early days was I would do a lot of little drops. Boom, 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 because I thought, oh, that'll look really nice. Well, by the time you drop a bunch of 6 inch or 8 inch drops, it blurs together and it looks funny. What I would do is do a larger drop and then maybe a smaller drop and then a larger drop, instead of making it like these 6 inch steps, because it just doesn't look, nature doesn't work that way. Nature rarely builds something in equal incremental levels. You know, it erodes and wears away. Think about where water comes from and where it's going and how it creates, and use your mind to think about it that way. And do one big drop and a little drop, or do one little drop and then a big drop, instead of these incremental boom, 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 boom. It's kind of fun when you're doing stonework to do those drop, 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 drop. While it's fun in your head, it's great, the net result typically isn't, because you don't get this nice, smooth, natural look. You get this rumble effect that doesn't look very natural. So hopefully that helps.